It was a calm Thursday afternoon in Los Angeles, the kind where the air is warm but not heavy, and the sky forgets how to cloud over. Angela Bassett stood outside a boutique called Lenero. She wasn't on a press tour, no premieres, no red carpets, just her, a soft beige trench coat, and a small canvas bag with the words, "You don't need a crown to carry power." She stepped inside. The boutique was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you wonder if you're supposed to be there. Expensive perfume lingered in the air. The walls were more glass than shelves. No music, just the soft tap of heels on polished marble. Angela didn't look nervous. She looked present. A young store clerk greeted her, smile thin and voice clipped. "Can I help you?" Angela smiled politely. "Just browsing." She moved slowly, studying textures, noticing stitching, turning over tags. A scarf caught her eye. Silk, with a pattern like storm clouds stretched across twilight. She lifted it gently. That's when the glances began. Two women near the jewelry section whispered without lowering their voices. "She's been here a while. She's touching everything. She didn't come in with anyone." Angela pretended not to notice, but she noticed. She always did. The clerk stepped away. Minutes passed. The atmosphere shifted from awkward to cold, and then came the sound, a faint chime overhead, a voice, monotone but unmistakably alert. "Security to the front floor, possible code 3, section 4. Angela knew that code. She'd heard similar ones whispered in meetings about discrimination. It was protocol speak for, "We think she doesn't belong here." Still holding the scarf, she turned toward the exit. Two LAPD officers entered moments later, one older, silver hair, tired eyes, the other younger, alert, hand already near his utility belt. They spotted her instantly. "Ma'am," the older one said, "can we speak with you for a moment?" Angela didn't step back. She nodded once. "Certainly." "We've had a report of suspicious behavior," the younger officer added. "You've been walking around without making a purchase. Employees feel concerned." Angela raised an eyebrow. "Is there a time limit on browsing in Beverly Hills?" The officer didn't answer. He glanced toward the scarf in her hand. "We'll need to see some ID." Angela set the scarf down slowly. "I haven't broken any laws. I haven't been asked to leave. And unless I'm being detained, I believe I'm free to go." That's when the younger officer reached for his cuffs. "You're being detained." Angela didn't flinch. She took a breath and said, "You're making a mistake." The cuffs clicked closed around her wrists, tight, deliberate. No one intervened. No clerk, no customer. No one even raised their voice. Outside, across the street, a 21-year-old film student named Ezra Coleman had been filming building facades for a school project. He looked up at just the right, or wrong, moment. He saw her, Angela, in cuffs, calm, dignified, still wearing the scarf loosely around her shoulders. He didn't know her name, but something in him, maybe instinct, maybe conscience, told him to raise his phone and record. Inside the patrol car, Angela sat still. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She watched the tinted glass reflect her own face back at her, a face that had been on screens for decades, a voice that had carried characters, power, and grace, and now silence. But this wasn't about her name. It was about her presence, her being, her skin. It wasn't the first time this had happened to someone, but this time, the camera had caught it, and this time, she was going to remember everything. They didn't take her to a holding center. They drove to a precinct barely listed on maps, Precinct 9. Angela had read about it, a facility flagged in federal reports, understaffed, undertrained, and under review. When she arrived, no one logged her in. No mugshot, no rights read, just a form handed to a man behind a desk. A man with a thick mustache and eyes that had seen too much to care anymore. Sheriff Robert Lancaster. He glanced at the form, then at Angela. He squinted. "Is this real?" One of the officers shrugged. She wasn't cooperating. Lancaster shook his head. "You idiots just cuffed Angela Bassett." The room fell silent. Lancaster stood, walked to a back office, and shut the door. His voice wasn't loud, but Angela could hear every word through the thin drywall. "Erase the report. Don't enter her name. This didn't happen." Back in the lobby, Angela sat in a steel chair, hands still cuffed. Across the room, a female officer was quietly deleting CCTV files from a desktop terminal. One by one, drag, drop, delete. No password, no oversight. Angela shifted slightly. She wasn't angry. She was memorizing. Every badge number, every nameplate, the color of the walls, the scent of old bleach. She heard a voice in the hallway, someone on the phone. She was loitering, no ID. Whitaker will process it in the morning. Whitaker. She knew that name, Judge William Whitaker, a man she'd questioned in a Senate hearing about systemic bias. He hadn't remembered her then either, and now they'd hand her over like just another name in a spreadsheet. Angela looked at the clock. She didn't need a lawyer, not yet. She needed 30 more minutes. Then maybe someone would answer the phone. The phone on the clerk's desk was beige, old, slightly cracked. It hadn't rung in hours. Angela noticed that too. What no one noticed was the security terminal left open and unsupervised. No password prompts, no logout screen, and next to it a small notepad with a scribbled code, 91, Fed. Angela shifted her weight, scanned the room. The young officer who'd been watching her, gone. The one who deleted the footage, at the vending machine, Lancaster, behind a door, shouting into a phone. This was the moment. She leaned forward, wrists still cuffed, and pressed the phone between both hands. She dialed. *9, 1. The federal line, 2 rings. A calm male voice answered. "Federal crisis line, go ahead." Angela didn't raise her voice. "It's Angela Bassett, Precinct 9. Unlawful detainment, internal deletion of footage, possible cover-up involving Sheriff Lancaster and Judge Whitaker." A pause. Then the voice shifted, no longer casual, now precise. "Confirmed. Stay on the line." Angela didn't stay. She hung up. That was enough. Across the country, in D.C., Kamala Harris sat in a closed briefing on juvenile justice reform. Her aide entered without knocking, slipped her a folded note. 3 words on it. Angela, Precinct 9. Kamala stood without a word. Back in L.A., Sheriff Lancaster sat in his office, one hand on his desk, the other holding a bourbon glass half full, even though it was still daylight. He wasn't worried about press or lawsuits. He had weathered dozens. His motto, outlast the noise. But this time, something unsettled him. He stared at the security monitor feed. Angela hadn't moved. She wasn't pleading. She was watching. He reached for the intercom. "Get her out of here before it gets messy." Minutes later, 2 officers returned. Not rough, not polite, just efficient. They uncuffed her and told her she was free to go. No charges, no record. Angela stood, walked past them, paused, then turned slightly toward the nearest security camera, still blinking red, and said, just loud enough for it to catch, "You tried to erase me. Now I'll write it down louder." Then she left. But it wasn't over. Ezra Coleman was waiting near the corner. He hadn't stopped filming. Angela looked at him. "You still rolling?" He nodded. "I never stopped." She gave a small nod and walked away. Ezra uploaded the video that night. He didn't add filters, didn't add music, no clickbait title, just Angela Bassett, cuffed in Beverly Hills for browsing scarves. It took exactly 19 minutes to go viral. By morning, hashtag Angela was browsing was the #1 trend on every platform. Clips played on every cable network. People weren't just angry, they were seeing something they couldn't deny. A woman respected worldwide, reduced to suspicion for standing still, and the woman in question hadn't even spoken yet. At 6:41 a.m., Kamala Harris held a press briefing. Brief, stern. This administration will not ignore internal misconduct, regardless of badge, title, or history. The footage is clear. The silence that followed it is louder. I've authorized an immediate federal investigation into the events surrounding Ms. Bassett's detainment at Precinct 9. No questions taken, no smiles. The press room shook anyway. Back at Precinct 9, Sheriff Lancaster knew it was over. Not just this incident. The whole fortress he'd built on shadows and silence, cracking under one video. He tried to call Whitaker, no answer. He called a contact in City Hall, line dead. He turned to Officer Holloway. "You got that burner drive?" Holloway nodded, slid open a drawer, pulled out a USB marked "Nothing to see." Lancaster shoved it in his pocket, but when he opened his office door to leave, 2 federal agents were already standing there. "Sheriff Robert Lancaster?" He didn't answer. "Step aside, sir. This facility is under federal review." Lancaster's mouth tightened. He didn't move. The taller agent raised the file. "In this envelope, 24 deleted body cam logs, 6 unregistered transfers of evidence, and your voice on a recorded line saying, 'This didn't happen.'" Lancaster stared. "Where'd you get that?" Angela Bassett dialed *9. He blinked. They stepped forward, and Lancaster, the man who outlasted everything, finally sat down. Angela didn't speak publicly for 3 days. She didn't need to. The footage was enough. The silence around her was filled with the voices of others, actors, activists, strangers, all asking the same question. If they do this to her, what chance do we have? On the 4th day, Angela agreed to one interview. No studio, no glam team. Just her, a chair, and a single camera. "I didn't resist because I needed to see what they would do. I didn't speak because I needed to hear who would. And I didn't cry because I wasn't broken, but I was tired. And if that fatigue can power someone else to stand, then maybe it was worth it." She paused. "I've played queens, mothers, survivors, but this wasn't a role. This was real, and the real world doesn't yell, 'Cut.'" The clip was played 70 million times in 24 hours. Angela returned to work, but not to a set. She walked into a closed hearing on civil rights enforcement, not as a witness, but as an advisor, and across from her sat Kamala Harris. The vice president leaned forward. "Do you want them charged?" Angela shook her head. "No, I want the system audited. I want records unsealed. I want budgets exposed. And I want you to start with every precinct that's never had a complaint, because that means no one ever felt safe enough to file one." Kamala nodded once. "It begins today." 2 weeks passed, but the story didn't fade, because something unusual was happening, not just online, not just in the press. Something was shifting inside government offices, inside courtrooms, inside police unions. Angela Bassett had become more than a headline. She had become a mirror, and mirrors make people nervous. Kamala Harris sat with the Department of Justice's oversight team. A digital screen displayed Precinct Risk Index, red zones. At the top of the list, Precinct 9. Below it, 6 others that hadn't filed a misconduct report in over 10 years. That was the pattern. Not too many complaints, too few. Kamala tapped her pen. Start with internal record leaks. Focus on those with clean public profiles but dirty inboxes. A staffer hesitated. Madam Vice President, they'll push back, hard. Kamala didn't look up. Then we'll push harder. Meanwhile, Ezra Coleman's phone wouldn't stop vibrating. What started as a single video had become a full-time job. He turned down interviews, refused sponsorships. Instead, he started something new. Undercurrent Media, a channel not built to go viral, but to document the moments before people hit record. And Angela? She agreed to appear once. In a 12-minute conversation, she described every detail of that day, not just the cuffs, not just the silence, but the invisible checklist that followed her through every store she walked into. Walk in, walk slow, keep hands visible, don't wear sunglasses, don't speak too loud, and always smile so they don't think you're mad. Ezra didn't say a word. He just let the camera run. The public didn't need to be convinced anymore, but the system did. So Kamala took it to Congress, a special session. Angela was there too, not as a speaker, not on camera. She sat in the gallery, quiet but impossible to ignore. The committee chair began reading incident reports from Precinct 9, lines that echoed each other. Subject was loitering. Suspicious behavior. No ID presented. Body cam failed to record. Then came the buried files, cases where civilians had complained and disappeared from the system within 48 hours. Kamala stood. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't a mistake. It's an architecture, one designed to be invisible until it fails publicly. She pointed to a projected image. It was a still from Ezra's footage. Angela, in cuffs, calm, watching. Kamala said, "That's not a crime scene. That's a lesson. And if we don't learn from it, we're not fit to govern." The room went silent. The next day, Judge William Whitaker was placed on administrative leave. Internal emails had surfaced, threads showing he had worked directly with Lancaster to suppress video evidence in 4 prior cases. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Precinct 9 looked different. Clean walls, new signage, external auditors. Gone were the desks covered in coffee stains and half-deleted reports. In their place, clear glass rooms, visible cameras, and a small plaque by the entrance that read, "Recording begins before the badge is worn." Angela returned one final time, not alone, this time with Kamala Harris and a team of federal legal scholars. But Angela didn't speak about her arrest. She spoke about something deeper. The issue isn't just bad apples. It's that we plant trees in soil that was never meant to hold justice, and then we're shocked when the fruit is poisoned. A young recruit raised his hand. "What are we supposed to do when we're told not to question orders?" Angela looked him in the eye. "Ask anyway." The trial began on a Monday morning. Cool breeze, no protest signs, no chants, just silence. Inside the federal courthouse in downtown LA, every seat was filled. In the defendant's row, Sheriff Robert Lancaster, face pale but jaw still clenched. Judge William Whitaker, eyes scanning the room like he could still control it. And behind them, 3 former officers from Precinct 9, no uniforms, no badges, just gray suits and a silence they weren't used to. Angela didn't speak first. Ezra did. He stood, nervous but clear. "My footage wasn't an accident. I wasn't trying to make news. I was trying to make sure the truth didn't vanish like it always does. He handed the jury a single USB stick. The courtroom screen lit up. Angela, in high resolution, calm, still. Then the moment. The cuffs. Then the aftermath. Then the erased files, recovered. Then, even more. Footage from another woman, a teacher. Footage from a man in a wheelchair. Footage from a teenager dragged outside for wearing a hoodie. All from Precinct 9. All never reported. All hidden. Until now. Next, a whistleblower took the stand, a former IT contractor. I was paid to wipe drives every 6 months. They said it was routine, but the files always started with detain and ended with dates. He paused. I tried to speak up once. Next day, my contract was pulled. Kamala Harris didn't sit in the courtroom, but she watched it all from a secure DOJ room in D.C., and she took notes. Angela Bassett finally took the stand on the second day. No theatrics, no anger, just a quiet presence. They didn't ask who I was. They decided what I was. And in that decision, they revealed everything about how this system operates. She looked directly at Lancaster. You built a department that confused silence with safety. Then at Whitaker, you wore robes to hide how small your justice really was. And finally, at the jury, I don't want revenge. I want a blueprint. So no one else ever sits in this seat for trying to buy a scarf. The verdict came on day 7. Lancaster, 24 years for obstruction, tampering, and civil rights violations. Whitaker, 28 years plus permanent disbarment. The officers, 12 to 16 years, each charged with perjury and falsification of evidence. But the real impact wasn't prison. It was what came next. Judge Eleanor Ramirez issued a ruling unlike any before it. All seized assets from the defendants, homes, vehicles, offshore accounts, were to be transferred to a new program, the Civic Accountability and Rights Education Fund, a $76 million initiative to build learning centers in underserved neighborhoods. First on the list, Precinct 9. The building didn't shut down. It was rebuilt. Glass walls, natural light, community review boards, no unlogged entries, no unwatched cameras. Angela visited once, quietly. She walked the halls, stopped at a door labeled Angela Bassett Legal Literacy Library. She didn't cry, but she stood there a long time. Ezra Coleman became editor-in-chief of Undercurrent Media, now a nonprofit investigative outlet with over 200 contributors. He never monetized Angela's video. He just posted it at the top of the site, always pinned. And Angela? She turned down every offer. No memoir, no political run, no foundation. She went home and started teaching at a community center. Not law, but something deeper. She taught people how to document, how to observe, how to not look away. Her first class began with one sentence. This is not about what happened to me. It's about what was always happening. You just finally saw it. On the 3rd anniversary of the verdict, Kamala Harris visited LA. She gave a speech, short and untelevised, in front of what used to be Precinct 9. Angela stood beside her. Kamala spoke just 9 words. Justice is louder when you don't ask permission. And that was it. No cameras, just 2 women. One who held the pen, one who became the page.